Hi, I'm Jacquelyn Salgado. I'm a Chicana and an Ojibwe Chippewa Sault Ste. Marie tribe artist based here in San Antonio, Texas, and this is Una Plática.
Una Plática.
Una Plática.
Es Una Plática.
Say Plática.
Una Plática. Una Plática.
Initially, what inspired me to become an artist was being outside in nature so often. As a child, I was very quiet, so if I wasn't reading something, I always had a sketch pad with me. And I just paid attention to a lot of details that I felt were really overlooked. And it just developed into, I don't want to call it a skill, but more of an outlet and something that was really healing for me, like good medicine. And so I really enjoyed taking that time to be out and about in nature and just to also just fully apply my understanding of my relationship to everything around me. And it started as a young child, so it just developed more and more as I grew older. And eventually, in my undergraduate pre-med years at UTSA, I decided to take on being an artist as a full-time career. So it just turned into something, I guess just a small spark that really lit the fire. Yes, I do consider myself a Chicana artist. I'm a first generation Chicana in my family. My grandparents are both from Tlaxcala and Pueblo, Mexico. So they came here with the expectation of a better life, but also with the work ethic of we don't know how, but we're going to get it done. And so I feel like as Chicanos, just our work ethic and our overall drive for the betterment of ourselves and our families is really inspiring to me. And it's something that I grew up with, of just having that drive and not taking no as an answer, but more of how can I make this happen and how can I do better for myself and for my family. And so that's just something that is really rooted in me, is just to be my best self, and that I represent more than just myself. I represent my family and everything that they worked so hard for to be able to have the privilege to be an artist. So it's really an honor to carry that as a Chicana and to be able to express my culture and just really embrace all of these different parts of the duality of it. Yes, I really look up to my grandfather, Roberto Salgado, because he is just so driven and everything that he does is rooted in love. And he's a very sentimental man, but he's also a very strong man. And he's both emotionally, physically, and he's just always been so rooted in family and very driven to ensure that he is there and present. And he's been a constant in my life and a support throughout all of my endeavors, not only for pre-med at UTSA, but also with my art. He's been my biggest supporter, and he has always been there for me throughout every little up and down, and giving me that constant inspiration, and even, telling me about his own experiences that really inspire me, and, giving me that just a nod in my career to fully be my best self and to actually use my skills to fully, I guess, express my culture, but also just to do what is fully what I think is expression in my own style. Because he always tells me you don't have to be anybody but yourself. So as long as you do that, then you'll be okay. I think having organizations like Centro Cultural Aztlán are really important because it not only brings community together, but it also is a space to honor Chicano artists. And I think in the professional artist world, we don't have very many spaces for artists of color, especially Chicanos. We're often looked down on and often just completely eliminated from any opportunity or equations because ni de aquí ni de allá. We're not Mexican enough, or we're not American enough, or we're taken under the assumption that we're uneducated or that we lack the skill or we lack the drive. And I think places like Centro Cultural Aztlán are very important because it's not only honoring the history of Chicanos in artistry, but it's also really important to have that sense of community and to have those spaces that are safe for these artists to express themselves and to really bring out their best work and their just the best versions of themselves. My favorite program is the annual Virgen de Guadalupe every December. I think mostly because Tonantzin, or La Virgen, she's very symbolic of not only being able to overcome so many obstacles, but she represents more than just a religion. I think she represents culture and history, and just the importance of matriarchs in our lives and within our communities. I myself know as a single mother and just as somebody who grew up in a multi-generational household, how much that weight can be. And so being brought up with that spiritual influence and understanding the historical significance and the cultural significance, it just makes the art that much more beautiful to enjoy, and to also just being able to feel inspired by all of these different artists who have their beautiful expressions of Tonantzin, and being able to celebrate that initial encounter that she had with Juan Diego. So it's just one of those things that I really enjoy, and that it makes you feel like a kid, before Christmas time again, enjoying the season and also just feeling that sense of warmth. I think for me, my art has always been very based on, I would like to say, advocating for the overlooked. So a lot of my art is advocating for wildlife and for First Nations, for Chicanos, also for women. And, I just would like for my art to further that narrative of being able to acknowledge these different things that sometimes get overlooked, but they're too beautiful to not stop and admire. And I feel like art really opens that dialogue for just giving yourself that thought process of, wow, I didn't stop to think about, how much, AI data centers are affecting like Texas water and wildlife. And I didn't bother to think about, how these other effects on like ecosystems are, affecting the migratory birds, or affecting, migratory patterns for other animals in nature like wolves. And especially, as a wildlife advocate, I think like it's important to be able to use your skills for the best of your ability. So it's just one of those things where it's a hope, but it's not, I don't think it's considered a requirement to many. But as far as being rooted in like my culture and my identity. It's more of I want to say that it's an honor to do so. So I'd like to acknowledge that and, do that as best I can. One of my favorite pieces that I've done recently, it was for a DC folklorico dance group, and they're based in Washington, DC, and it was done basically as a mural on a giant canvas, and it was the largest, I think, painting that I had done to date on a canvas. And it was a bit of a challenge because I was sent a number of reference photos, and I wanted to do justice not only for the culture for Dia de Muertos, but also the historical significance, not only in indigenous practices, but in, the Catholic practices, as well as, how a lot of Chicanos here in America still celebrate the holiday and how it's such an impactful time of year in Mexico. And so I wanted that to be a piece that gave that acknowledgement, and it was really an honor because I I was told, oh, it's a surprise, you don't know where it's going to go yet. And so I was like, oh, okay, well, what am I gonna do now? So I just did it to the best of my ability. It took maybe, I want to say, 4 weeks to fully complete, and it was very, very, very detailed. And there were some times where I would get a call and they'd say, hey, can you add on this, or can you put a little bit more color here and there? And it's like, yes. So I, made sure that I took my time and that I wanted to fully do the honor of making sure that these dancers and the culture and just the overall holiday of Dia de Muertos was fully encapsulated in this piece, because it's something that would be behind these dancers as they're, doing this ceremonial expression. And then when I finally was completed with it, they let me know, hey, this is going to be in the Smithsonian at the DC, at the National Portrait Gallery of Washington, DC. So it's very exciting, and it's also one of those things that I felt that was just kind of a surreal moment for a Chicana artist, but it was also really exciting to complete. And yeah, I'm really happy that they enjoyed it, and that, it's going to be in spaces for other Chicanos here in America. And yeah, so that's one of my favorites. Another recent one that I have done, it was actually a mural, and I had a first solo exhibition at Carbon Bloom Gallery, located at Blue Star Arts Complex. And this was a nod more so to my indigenous roots, and it was very expressive, and it was called The Good Life, and it was a way of honoring the 7 grandfather teachings to the Anishinaabe people and, traditional Ojibwe teachings. And it was one of those things where I had to make sure that I did it not only with humility and integrity, but the full understanding of being able to walk with these teachings and implement them into my art as well. So it was more of storytelling through art. And this mural was kind of one of the hardest murals I've ever done, to be quite honest, and I had about 4 days to complete it. So it was a challenge, but it was really exciting, and I had to use a lot of darker colors and just really challenge myself as an artist. So it was a full photo of a raven, which is an animal that I really do resonate with a lot. And the raven in our teachings is a very humble creature, not only because he doesn't compete with his counterparts of other birds of the air, birds of prey, but he's more of a messenger of something that can acknowledge those things that sometimes we are afraid to bring to light. And I think one of those things is beautiful is being able to be yourself and, stand in the sun and being able to acknowledge those other parts of you, because I think the more that we try and suppress our emotions and our expression, it's harder to produce art in that way. And I think that's why art is so beautiful. And so, that was there for the time of that, or the duration of that exhibition. So it was a really beautiful experience, and I was really happy with the overall outcome of that piece.